Hello, guys and gals, and welcome to another episode of Path of Exile Skills. Path of Exile 2 Skills. So today we're going to be taking a look at Frost Darts. Frost Darts is an interesting ability. It was released, I think, like 0.4 or something. It wasn't particularly held with any fanfare, but I saw some interesting use case scenarios for it and tried to play around with it. And I was actually surprised at just how good it was early game. Late game, I started to have some issues with it, but I think it was mainly just due to my inadequate ability to scale it properly. And I think if I was actually scaling it properly, I would be able to do a lot more damage with it. I'm going to explain to you how it works, how to get the best out of it, and why it's kind of OP. So first off, Frost Darts is an AoE projectile cold payoff repeatable spell. It does cost 138 mana, and it has a cast time of 0.8 seconds, with a critical hit chance of 13%, which is actually kind of high. Sounds like you could easily do a crit build with this particular skill if you really wanted to. Where's our crit percent chance on here? That doesn't show our crit percent chance on here. Cold resistance does not show the crit percent chance on here. Wonder why. So with this particular ability, it conjures a number of icy projectiles that launch toward the target, and the projectiles hit a chilled or frozen target, creating chunks of ice that deal additional damage on impacting the ground. Now, it's kind of hard to explain exactly how this works, because there's like 3 different ways that this ability functions. It's not just 1, not just 2, but 3 separate different ways that this ability functions. And I think I probably need to bring out good old Notepad here so that we can outline exactly how this ability functions in all of its different forms. So first off, there is Frost Darts. Frost Darts is your main ability, and your main ability has just direct damage. This is basically just you're hitting the target with the bolt. It does direct damage to the target. It does not chill and does not freeze. This is kind of important for the way that this particular ability works. I know it's called Frost Darts, and you would think that Frost Darts would have the ability to chill or freeze, but they're not set up for chilling and freezing, and there's a specific reason why this ability does not chill and does not freeze, and it has to do with the other 2 functions of the way that this ability works. It actually consumes a cold infusion, if possible, and this is the way that we get into the more nitty-gritty stuff, right? So if we take a look at the ability, I'm pretty sure the ability actually says, yes, right here, cannot inflict chill, and cannot cause freeze buildup. And the reason why this is because it has some pretty nice ways that it can function if you have chill or freeze. All right. So now is way number 2. So in way number 2, if the Frost Darts hit a chilled or frozen enemy, this allows the Frost Darts to do something interesting. They have the ability to cause ice chunks to hit the target. Let's just type frozen. Creates ice chunks. Now, the ice chunks are not particularly very good, and in my personal opinion, the ice chunks kind of suck balls. They do 153 to 229 cold damage apiece. They cannot cause freeze or build up or chill as well, and the number of projectiles cannot be modified. Impact radius is 0.8 meters, which is extremely small, and each dart creates 2 ice chunks. So this is kind of like a math project here. You have to figure out exactly, well, how many darts am I getting? Well, you get kind of like 3 projectiles plus an additional 2 projectiles. And then I think you can get some more. Let me pull up Advanced Thaumaturgy to see what the Gemling Legionnaire is getting for Frost Darts. It'll be interesting. Forks an additional 2 times. So you get some forking going on there. Who doesn't like a little bit of forking action? So Frost Darts has a certain number of projectiles. It fires 3 projectiles, and you can get 2 additional projectiles. You can also get more projectiles as well from Frost Darts, increasing the total number of projectiles to a pretty massive degree, which means that you can have, essentially, 5 plus whatever other projectiles you can get from whatever manners. You can get projectiles from your staff. You can get a 50% chance, I think, or 25% chance at least for like 2 additional projectiles on your staff. You can also get additional projectile procs on the board as well. Like if you go into the passive tree, there's some pretty interesting ones in here for additional projectiles, like this old tree, Psychic Fragmentation, which gives you % chances to fire additional projectiles. And then up here, there's another couple that you can grab. So by the time you're done, you can fire a lot more than just simply 3 projectiles. You can fire like 3 plus 2, which is 5, and then you can get like 2 additional, which is 6, 7. And by the time you're done, you're getting like maybe, let's say, 5 to like 7 projectiles easy, if not maybe even more, depending on how you want to set it up. Right? Now, these 5 to 7 projectiles create ice chunks. And if you look at the ability specifically, it states that there is a certain number of ice chunks created by each projectile, and the number of chunks cannot be changed because the number of projectiles cannot be modified. Right? So in this particular case, we're modifying the number of darts. We're not modifying the number of chunks, but the number of chunks we get is created by the number of projectiles that we fired. So we can get 2 ice chunks per projectile, which means we're looking at like at a max, probably like 7 times 2, which is like 14 projectiles, which is pretty darn good. Okay, you're following me so far. So we get 14 projectiles. 14 projectiles is a lot of freaking projectiles, and they do 153 to 229 damage per projectile before any other modifiers, right? So you're talking about like 229 times 14, which is like 3,206 cold damage overall. Now the problem is that these projectiles have really small range. They only have like a 0.8 meter radius, and they don't really do very much damage because they don't really hit very many targets. So while you might have 14 projectiles, they're going to spread out all over the place, and they're not really going to do very much damage. Now, this leads into the third way that Frost Darts works. So what is the third way that Frost Darts works? Well, the third way is if Frost Darts hits a chilled or frozen enemy, an enemy, I don't even know how to spell enemy, frozen monster. I don't know why I'm stumped on enemy for some reason. Flame me in the comments. Frost Darts hits a chilled or frozen monster, and consumes a cold infusion. Now, this is where things get really interesting. So, consuming a cold infusion creates a new thing going on here. This is the explosion side over here. So it says specifically, it says consumes a cold infusion if possible to cause each projectile to lodge into the enemy and then explode. This means that the third version, the cold infusion version, is essentially sticky grenades. And essentially solves the problem that we're having above, which is that we don't really get the damage because the damage is spread out all over the place. But this also gives you 2 ways of using the ability. One way, without the infusion, but with the chill, will give you the effectiveness of getting like a area-wide damage. The other way, with the infusion, will give you a very large amount of single target damage, allowing you to convert Frost Darts into both AoE and single target basically at a whim of whatever you're willing to do. Now, I'd like to show you in practice how this works, because I feel like it's just kind of crazy, the difference between just firing it off without the infusions and firing it off with the infusions. Now, how am I getting my infusions? I'm using Frost Bomb. It's a pretty easy, pretty standard way to get infusions. You get 1 fusion per Frost Bomb, and you also grab more Frost Bombs by increasing the number of limit, and the more limit you have, the more infusions you get, and basically you can have almost like an infinite number of infusions as long as you're spamming Frost Bomb, which is good for your build anyway because it gives you exposure. And in this particular case, I'm also utilizing a specific staff for this particular build, which may or may not be the best staff, but it is an ability that has Heart of Ice, or a staff that has Heart of Ice. Heart of Ice chills any enemy in your presence as though dealing 583 to 875 cold damage, and it also has more magnitude chill inflicted. Now, why am I using this? Well, to get the best effectiveness out of Frost Darts, any enemy that I hit has to be chilled. So if I'm not hitting a chilled enemy, then I'm not getting the best version of Frost Darts. I'm getting the baby version of Frost Darts. So they need to be either chilled, they need to be either frozen, and I also need to have an infusion, which is a lot of prep work to try and get the optimal damage from the ability. It really is. So in general, when you actually play this character and you actually go out and try and kill monsters, one of the things that you'll find out is that it works fairly well against single targets because of how the whole thing functions. Let's grab any waystone. It really doesn't matter. This character was never set up fully, unfortunately, so I don't have a full tier 15 geared version to show you, but we're just going to hop into any map. It really doesn't matter. And I'm going to kind of give you an idea of the overall differences between the way the ability functions, right? So the first way that you need to understand the way the ability functions differently is the Frostbolt itself sucks by itself. Like, my personal opinion, the Frostbolt is just one of the worst abilities. It doesn't really do anything unless the monsters are chilled or frozen, and it doesn't chill or freeze anything. So if the monsters are not chilled or frozen, you get nothing out of it. It's also kind of slow. Like, it's not exactly the fastest ability. But you will notice that if I am within range to chill a target, right? Target is chilled, and I hit the target, you see all these little bombs coming off, right? It just basically is a bunch of like random AoE damage that hits the targets, and it's just all over the place, little explosions. They're very tiny explosions, though. I actually kind of really want to rebuild this character. That might be something that we could do as a theory craft later, just to kind of see if I can really get the optimal version of this build. Now, let's go ahead and get ourselves some infusions. So infusions are easy. Frostbomb is our main way to get infusions. We're going to get multiple infusions relatively quickly. So I'm going to stack multiple infusions here. So I've got 4 infusions, right? So now let's go and let's hit a target. Now, the thing that you're going to notice, which is different about the way that this character works, is that as soon as I have the infusions and a monster is chilled, all of those sticky grenades, all 14 of those sticky grenades, are going to stick to the same target, and they're going to pop that target instantaneously, right? So I'm going to get a massive amount of damage on that single target, and they're just going to instantly get destroyed. Let's see if we can find the boss so I can really kind of show just how well the sticky grenades work. As you can see, I can pretty much like wipe the floor with entire packs. I actually really did like this ability when I was building it, and kind of wanted to set up like a whole character around it. It could be very fun. I wonder if you can use this in a totem, even. Like maybe do like a Frost Dart totem build. But then again, how do you share your infusions with the totems would be the question that I would wonder there. I'm assuming that there is a way you can share infusions with a totem. And then your whole job would basically just be building infusions. I don't know. Now, there is some added benefit to this build that I didn't really talk about, this skill, is that because this skill requires basically everything around you to be chilled, utilizing either the staff or other methods for chilling, you can really get a massive amount of, like, just slow. So the monsters tend to be extremely chilled and slowed around you all the time. As you can see, I'm also creating the ground effects. I also utilize Frost Nova. Frost Nova can put the chilled ground on the ground, which is also useful for this build, just to get the chilled effect, essentially, on every monster. Chilled ground obviously chills anything that's standing in it. And if you utilize an infusion with chilled ground, you get, or the Frost Nova, you get basically chilled ground across the entire screen. It's kind of OP, actually, for just generating large amounts of chilled ground. There are other ways that you could potentially do it, but unfortunately, since Frost Darts itself is incapable, essentially, of causing any kind of chill or freeze itself, you really have to kind of go to other abilities to achieve your freeze and chill, right? So we hit something like this, and you see we just get in there, we explode everything, everything dies relatively quickly. As long as we have an infusion, this skill actually works surprisingly well. I actually would probably want some kind of automated use of Frost Bomb so that we just have like an unlimited number of infusions. And I was actually thinking that generally Legionnaire might be a better choice because than Stormweaver. And it really comes down to the fact that he can have up to like 4 Frost Bombs, which means he can generate 4 infusions relatively quickly. So he has the ability to generate more infusions per second, essentially, than the Stormweaver can, which is actually kind of nice for this build. Just having as many infusions active as possible so that you can fire off as many times in a short period. There's also the new Kalgurin gem, which allows you to substitute the new Kalgurin infusion for your cold infusion, which could also be interesting with this particular build. It's something new that I haven't really checked out from the previous versions. Is the boss in the center or something? Do. I might have missed it over here. Let's see. That very well could be it right there. Yep, I missed it. Alright, so the first thing we're going to show is the Frostbolt damage, or dart damage, with no chill. So from over here, let me activate him first. From over here with no chill, you can see it's not exactly the best damage output. However, let me build some infusions. We're going to build 4 infusions real quick, and then we're going to set them up for failure. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and put the chilled ground down, and I'm going to fire off the bolts. And as you can see, the explosions, all the little micro explosions, happen so fast on the target because you hit the target with like 14, like per frostbolt, by the way, per frost dart. So per frost dart, you're shooting the target, you're hitting them with literally 14 explosions per frost dart, and you can get like 4 of them off within quick succession. You can, of course, stack, 4 infusions, and then you can have, of course, a couple infusions waiting in the wings. You can have a couple more set up, like sitting around. And then, of course, you can fire 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, right? So, like, I got 11 infusion-based frost darts off at that particular time period. So let's do a little bit of math here, right? So let's take a look at my ability. And of course, I'm not fully maxed out, but let's take a look at it anyway. So we've got conjures a number of icy projectiles that launch toward the target. Target chunks of ice deal additional damage on impact. Right? It has damage per chunk is something like 3,037. Right? So 3,037 per chunk. It's got like an average damage use of like, let's say about 3k, right? So let's just do a little quick math on this, and you can try and figure out what's going on. So we can attack 11 times in quick succession. We can use essentially 14 explosions because we got 14 projectiles, or 7 projectiles multiplied by 2 explosions per projectile. All right, so we've got about 154 frost darts multiplied, of course, by the 3,000, let's say average 3,000 damage, and you're talking about like some 462,000 damage, like in very fast succession. Now, scaling this to work on higher tier monsters was an issue that I was currently having, but honestly, I think my main problem was number 1, I didn't have enough plus the skills on frost darts. More plus the skills obviously would have helped out tremendously, so getting that higher into like the 32, 33, maybe even 34 range would have been a huge deal. I also could have utilized the specific gem. So there's these gems. Of course, these are on offline standard league, so these are super overinflated. In fact, if I search for +3, I'm pretty sure they're like 1,000 div. But if you go onto an actual league, they're not really that expensive. They're not as expensive as the others. And you can get like a +3 here relatively no problem. Another thing that I was missing was I didn't get +7 on the Whispering Ice Staff, which you definitely would want to do if you're trying to do this build. I highly recommend the Whispering Ice Staff for this build, by the way. There may be some other staves which could potentially be better. But, I mean, number 1, you get the Inflict Elemental Exposure on hits, which gives you a huge elemental exposure. You also get the +7 cold skills, which is also very nice. But the main thing here is just the Heart of the Ice, which chills all enemies around you. Now, you could potentially solve this in another way, find other ways to chill all the enemies around you. I did think that my solution with the Ice Nova and the Infusions was actually pretty brilliant, because the Ice Nova and the Infusions essentially allowed me to get multiple, like, just spammy cold ground, so you can just simply tap that, and then you've got this, you know, crazy chilled ground going all over the place, which does work for chilling the targets. So if you get into combat with a bunch of monsters and you utilize that as your chilling, you can do that. Like, you don't have to be using the Heart of the Ice Staff, but I found that the Heart of the Ice Staff just made the entire process so much easier. And yeah, just it was just a godsend. Now, obviously, increasing the overall damage of your character might be better. So a full staff that has plus cold skill damage, and maybe even cast speed would actually be really nice. This one actually has 15% reduced cast speed, which is unfortunate. Not exactly my personal favorite there, the reduced cast speed. But here you go. So this one is chilled. I need some infusions to get the, like, full effectiveness. And of course we can just I think that if you level with this character, you'll really get a sense of just how powerful it can be. If you go straight to endgame, right, and you don't really know how this ability works, and you don't really understand, like, the overall, like, effectiveness of the 3 different forms of the ability, which it really does have the 3 different forms. It has the basic direct damage, which is not really good. It has the ice chunks, which is kind of okay for doing, like, AoE damage in a large field. And then, of course, it has the actual, like, micro explosion sticky grenades, which is the, like, ultimate form, essentially, of the ability, right? Well, it's hard to really see how good the ability is if you don't use it on lower level monsters first and understand all the different forms. So I'd highly recommend that you check out the ability, level with it. It's actually a really good leveling skill. You'll have absolutely no problems leveling with it. In my time leveling with this ability, I literally demolished everything in the game up till, like, I think it was like tier 6 or something, without really putting any, like, very much effort into the Frost Dart build. And then once I got to the point where I started to struggle, like, I didn't really technically understand exactly how to get the most out of it, but I feel like I've evolved as a build creator, like, since then, and I probably could make a much, like, more advanced version of this Frost Darts build in general. I'd have to, like, play around with it a little bit, but yeah, I could see myself making something way better. Another good solution, and it was one that I explored, was something like this, which is the companions. Now, there are a lot of companions that you can potentially get, and if you get a companion that has a nice AoE to it, in fact, there's one in particular that I would highly recommend if you want me to show you that real quick. If you go to Act 4 and you teleport down to the Singing Caverns, in the Singing Caverns, there's a cave full of eggs, and in that cave full of eggs is a minion that actually, I do have a version of that minion. It's not the same version, but I will show you my latest version of that particular minion. And she's like a sea monster. She's got, like, a bunch of tentacles, and she got her boobies hanging out. See, she's got her boobies hanging out. This particular one actually has projectiles. And if you were to get one with this particular type that has always chills, which is really what you would want, is always chills. And of course you could also get other things like Hastora, or, you know, like always shocks, or various other things. There's definitely a good combination of effects that you get, but I would highly recommend utilizing a minion with this that has some ranged attacks. So this one in particular has projectiles, and you can utilize things like Nova projectiles. You can utilize things like multi-shots, and you can even give her, like, the effect of blind or other things. Basically, if you have the always chills modifier, every single monster that she hits will be chilled. And you can essentially utilize that effectiveness to just simply give you an automated form of chilling, which will then help you with your Frost Darts. There's a lot of ways you can approach the solution for always chilling the targets, because you have to have the targets chilled to get the most out of Frost Darts. And this is the most important takeaway that I need you guys to understand when it comes to this ability, right? Frost Darts by itself sucks balls. On top of that, you need an infusion, and you need chill slash freeze. Now, obviously, freeze is the optimal version, because if a monster is frozen, that's even better. But chill is easy. Okay, chill is so easy to get, and there's so many different characters that can do chilling. You can get chilling effects from tons of different abilities. You can get chilling effect from the cold ground. You can get chilling effect from just firing off cold skills. There are bonuses on the board that can increase the effectiveness of your chills, and so forth and so on. It is definitely not very difficult to get chill, and that's why I recommend focusing on the chilling part of this particular ability. So once you have an infusion, and once you have a chill or freeze or both set up in this build, Frost Darts becomes a literal powerhouse of an ability. And it's something that I'm going to have to like really knuckle down and try and get like a full tier 15 version of this build like running, up and running. But it could be really fun. I think I was actually thinking about a build specifically that was around chill, and I wanted to kind of combine it together with some curses, like for instance running maybe like one of the blasphemy curses as well, so that I can slow everything down to a crawl. Maybe use something like Whispers of Doom so you can get double curses, and then run a massive amount of curses around me, so you could get like the Temporal Chains curse, and maybe like another curse as well. Maybe the elemental resistance one could be a good one to combine. And then of course, if you're using the presence area of effect for your curses, you can also throw in that staff, which gives you the chilling aura, and you could just anything within range of you just gets like instantly chilled, and then maybe stack up presence so it hits the entire screen. There are some passives and stuff that have to do with infusions, which is something that I probably should talk about. Video is already going on forever, but let's take a look at this character one more time, which was, I believe this is the right character. The reason why is because when it comes to the infusions, you do need some of the passives to really help out. So let's take a look at some of the clearest infusions. First off is the Frozen Limit, which gives you +1 to your maximum infusions, allowing you to have more than just 3, which is massive. It's a massive boon for the character. There's also skills have a 10% chance not to remove elemental infusions at all, which is also very good. So this one right here gives you a chance to just consume or not consume the elemental infusions, giving you an extra use, which I highly recommend. And then there's also the duration, so giving you more duration, and then even more spell damage if you've consumed elemental infusions recently, which is not bad. This one gives you 35% increased spell damage if you consumed an elemental infusion recently. So you could basically get a really nice amount of not only anti-consumption, right, but you can also get some pretty good bonuses as far as the increased damage for consuming the infusions. And then on top of that, we also have things like this, which remnants can be collected from 50% further away. Remnants you create reappear once 3 seconds after being collected. So what this does is like if I cast my Frost Nova as an example here, and it creates 3 infusions, or 2 infusions, yeah, 3 yeah, okay. So they automatically will reappear after a certain period of time, and I think I need to like back away so that you can actually see them. Here, let me get rid of my infusions really quickly. Alright, so let's cast them over here. And then we're going to collect them and then run away. And what you should see is they just magically come back, right? So that's a pretty interesting one as well, because it basically gives you double infusions for whenever you're creating them. There's also the ones that allow you to collect your remnants from further away, which is interesting. This character, specifically the Stormweaver, does have some options for chilling targets multiple times, and also having it so that all the damage from all of your hits can contribute to chill magnitude, which basically means that any of your abilities could potentially chill. Of course, if you're using a cold character, most of your abilities are going to chill anyway. Frostbomb is unfortunately not a good chilling ability, so you might see me using Frostbomb all the time for the infusions. Well, the problem is that Frostbomb doesn't chill anything until the explosion happens. So for this entire duration, right, it's not really giving me any bomb, an actual chilling effect. Now, one thing that you could do to potentially help with that is you can use short fuse, which I already have in here, which makes it so that the frost bomb goes off quicker. And the reason why I'm using short fuse in general is just so that I'm getting a faster infusion. If you take that out of there, you'll notice that frost bomb just takes a really long time to explode. Right? And that's not what you want if you want infusions. Like, if you want to get as many infusions as you can, you don't want to have Frostbomb taking forever. So utilizing things like Short Fuse and Frostbomb can definitely be helpful there. As always, I do appreciate you guys and gals watching. Let me know what you guys think about Frost Darts. Have you messed around with Frost Darts? Have you seen the sticky bomb potential of it? Let me know down in the comments. And as always, keep watching.